Hello students, welcome to another lecture on lecture series that is on the 2 and 3 wheeler technologies. In the previous lectures, we saw about the introduction of the 2 and 3 wheelers, about the classification of the 2 and 3 wheeler vehicles, also about the history of the 2 and 3 wheeler vehicles, and also about the basic systems which is required to keep the vehicle in the running condition. In this chapter, that is the chapter number 2 of our syllabus, that is on the power plant of the 2 and 3 wheelers. Now, the power plant is a component which gives the power to the vehicle. So, in the case of the 2 and 3 wheeler vehicle, it will be an engine. So, engine is the power plant of the vehicle. So, we will start with the classification of the engine. The classification of the engine, how it is classified. Before starting the classification, let me make one thing clear, is that the engine that is being used in the 2 and 3 wheeler vehicles, we will only focus on the petrol engines. We also know that there are the engines in the auto rickshaws that works on the CNG, but mainly we will focus on the petrol engine of the 2 and 3 wheelers. So the classification of the engine based on the number of stroke. The number of stroke, there is only two options, that is 2-stroke engine and the 4-stroke engine. It can either be 2-stroke, which was used in the earlier vehicles of the 2-wheelers, and the 4-stroke, which is generally used in nowadays vehicles. The second criteria is the classification based on the torque and the speed of the vehicle. Generally, there is mainly three types, that is high speed engine, medium speed engine and low speed engine. The vehicles that we drive normally, such as Activas, normal bikes, are and low speed engine, and the sports bike will be on the side of the high speed engines. Also, the classification based on the power output of the engine, how much the power is being generated from the engine. The bhp will be the measure of the power that will be for the different criteria. It will also depend on the cc of the engine, how much cc is there, the cubic centimeters of the combustion chamber is there, that defines the power that will be generated in the engine. More the cc, more the power that is generated by the engine. The cylinder angle at which the cylinders are arranged will also be important for the engine classification. Also, number of cylinders. Generally, in case of the 2-wheelers or 3-wheelers, we use a single cylinder engine. But for the higher speed or for the higher output, we might use a multi-cylinder engine for the 2-cylinder or 3-cylinder, or also we can use the 4-cylinder engine if the requirement of the power is higher. Also, the classification based on the fuel supply system. In case of the fuel supply system, the engines which uses the petrol can either be supplied with the help of carburetor or the other system, that is modern system which is used in the nowadays vehicle, that is an fuel injection system. So we can use either one of them for supplying the air plus fuel in the engine. Next criteria is the arrangement of the cylinder, how the cylinders are arranged in the engine. Also, the cylinders can be arranged inline, V-cylinder engine, right? They are the different types of the cylinder engine. If we are using the single cylinder, then there is no matter of the cylinder arrangement. But if we are using the multi-cylinder engine, then the arrangement of the cylinder can be different according to the requirement. Also, the engine classification based on the bar operating mechanism. In the case of the 4-wheelers, the bar operating mechanism is generally electronic nowadays. You might have read the name behind of the car, that is VVT, variable valve technology, VTVT. Right, so all these things built is the variable valve technology that works with the help of the electronic sensors. In the case of the two-wheelers, there are mainly three types of the valve operating mechanism. That is, first the push-rod overhead valve, the second is single overhead valve with the help of camshaft, and the second is the double overhead valve camshaft. Right, the double overhead valve generally are given in the bikes which has the higher speed, in which the two valves, two inlet valve and two exhaust valves are given, and that is operated with the two camshaft as well. So these are the classification or the types of engines that we generally use in the case of the two and three wheelers. Now let's see about the two-stroke petrol engine. In the case of the two-stroke petrol engine, the working of the engine will complete in the two-stroke. The operation happens all the four: suction, compression, expansion and exhaust. But in the case of the two-stroke engine, this thing completes in just the two strokes. We will see this in the detail, and also you can see all the things that in the graphics behind. You can see the combustion chamber, the spark plug is arranged above that. Right now the port which you can see is the exhaust port. The valves will not be used in this, the ports will be used. The port that is above the piston right now is the exhaust port. The piston, and to the left side of the piston you can see that is connected to our combustion chamber, that is known as the transfer port, which transfers the inlet valve after pressurizing in the crankcase, and then after pressurizing the transfer port submits the fuel plus air ratio into the combustion chamber. The valve at the right side of the piston, that is the inlet valve. Also you can see the crankcase. In the crankcase, the charge which is coming from the inlet will be first pressurized. The crank will pressurize the charge which comes from the inlet valve. After pressurizing that charge, the charge will be transmitted from the help of the transfer case or the transfer port. That transfer port transmits the pressurized charge into the engine or into the combustion chamber. So there are mainly three ports: inlet port, exhaust port, and the third one that is different from the four-stroke is the transfer port, which is required so that we can complete all the four operations in just two strokes. So, right. So how it will work is that again the inlet valve will supply the air plus fuel in the engine when piston is at the top dead center or when the inlet valve is open. When piston will come down, the inlet valve will get covered and it will close. So because of that, the charge which came inside will be pressurized because of the downward movement of the piston. The downward movement of the piston will pressurize the air plus fuel charge. That pressurized air plus fuel charge will be transferred into the combustion chamber with the help of the transfer port. So that transfer port will transmit that inlet charge that came from the inlet port after pressurizing into the crankcase, and after pressurizing the transfer port will transmit the charge into the combustion chamber, where the combustion of charge need to be taken place. After charge goes into the combustion chamber, the piston will move upwards, or it will go again from the BDC to the TDC. The BDC is the bottom dead center and the TDC is the top dead center of the combustion chamber. So when transfer port gets uncovered, the charge gets inside the combustion chamber. When the piston reaches the BDC, again the stroke reverses and the piston goes to the upward side. The next thing that will happen is known as the compression. The compression of the charge will happen when piston will move from the BDC towards the TDC side. Why this happen? Because we know when the pressure is getting increased, when the pressure will increase, when the volume of that matter is decreased. So when piston will move upwards, so the volume of the combustion chamber will be decreasing. Because of the decreased volume, the pressure will be created in the fuel charge and our fuel will be compressed. When the compression stroke is completed, the spark will generate a spark, and that spark will ignite our fuel. Because of the fuel ignition, the energy will be generated and the piston will come down and the expansion stroke will work. Right? You can see in the graphics that the working of the two-stroke petrol engine. In that case, you can see first the compression and the second expansion. Right? The compression stroke is simultaneously happens with the suction stroke, and whenever there is an expansion stroke, after completing the expansion stroke, the exhaust gases goes out with it. So mainly the two-stroke engines or two-stroke petrol engines are generally used or was used in the two-wheeler. You can see that now the examples of the application that we use. Generally the lone mover or lone cutters uses the two-stroke engine. Go-karts uses the two-stroke engines nowadays as well. Let's see the working of the two-stroke petrol engine once again. In this figure, you can see again that the charge comes below the piston. It is getting pressurized. Then from the transfer port, it goes into combustion chamber. After it gets compressed, the spark happens. With the happening of the spark, the expansion stroke starts. And when the expansion happens, the exhaust gases goes out when the inlet gases come in from the transfer port. This is basically known as the scavenging process, because the transfer port supplies the pressurized fuel plus air charge into the combustion chamber, which forces the exhaust gases to go out from the engine. So in that case, we can see that compression and exhaust stroke happen simultaneously, and with that also the exhaust and compression stroke happens simultaneously. Right? So expansion and things that happens in the second stroke. With that, the exhaust gases goes out from the engine. So this is how the two-stroke petrol engine works, and this two-stroke petrol engine has a basic requirement of the scavenging process, because in this case the inlet charge and exhaust charge gets mixed. If the inlet charge is not pressurized, then the exhaust charge will not go out, and inlet charge will also go out with the exhaust charges. In the case of the scavenging, what happens is that the pressurized inlet charge will force out the exhaust gases from the engine, and this will be helpful for the two-stroke petrol engine. So in this video, we saw about the detailed working of the two-stroke petrol engine. In the next video, we will see about the pot timing diagram and the four-stroke petrol engine working. Until then, thank you so much.